I will go into another segment, which is quite interesting, but I will not be taking this segment, right, for risk of too much of exposure, Jeffrey. What's next segment we have?
Okay, it's our morning chapters where we highlight and spotlight on writers and authors. And today we've been joined in the program by a children's book author. The reason why Kayode is not taking it is because of the title. Kayode is new. We're going to talk about overcoming cultural and language barrier. We've been joined in the program by Mim Boham, joining us from Oxford in the United Kingdom. Thank you so much, Boham, for coming on the program.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
You have literally intimidated my colleague out of the conversation, but he's in anyway. He's
I just don't want too much exposure, to Kayode's, right? But Jeffrey, go ahead.
All right, so let's walk through some of your work that you've been doing as far as let's even talk about that book in the first place. Let's begin there.
Yes, so Kayode's New is loosely based off of my personal experience as a child and my son's experience years later. So when I was about 5 years old, my family moved to England, and being the only Black child in the classroom, I knew that I was physically different from everybody else. And I think my major insecurity was my hair, because everybody else's hair was long and flowy and mine was just upward. And so fast forward years later, I had my son. We were in Nigeria. He was 4 years old. We moved to England, and then he went to school and had the exact same experience, and it was also his hair. So an afro is a huge theme in the book, and it's just about moving to a different country, not really knowing the culture and trying to fit in, and the influence that teachers have over children who are experiencing that, So I just thought to share that experience in a book so that people can identify. I found that a lot of people have identified with the story.
Yes, a lot of us. Whether you're Kayode or not, particularly for me, and I'm obviously getting those books or that book for the kids as well. I don't want to ask what influenced the name Kayode's New, right? Because I imagine, is that your son's name?
No. Kayode is actually, I love the name. First time I ever heard that name, I think I was in my teens, and I'm from Port Harcourt, so we don't have a lot of Kayodes in Port Harcourt back then. And I remember a friend of mine, that was his name, and I was like, oh, I really like this name.
Thank you.
And that was the first time I heard the name, and I just liked the name, and I decided to use it in my book.
Thank you very much. I'm done. In fact, I'm done for today. Jeffrey, take over.
Okay, so some of these challenges that people, let's even talk about the writing process and your thought process in putting together books that are directed at children. Writing for kids, it's easy to write for adults. Whatever you put out, adults, they can be able to process and, decipher all of these things. But talk to us about writing for children. How do you process it? What language do you have in your head to translate to kids for them to understand?
So I'm a teacher, and I've worked in early years for over 15 years. I'm a nursery teacher, even though I've worked with primary, and currently I'm working with secondary school students. But the early years is my little baby. I love those tiny children. And reading books to them was what I did throughout my career. I think that was one of my strengths, giving the characters different voices. I even have a YouTube channel where I read books to children. So I love a children's book story. I love, the illustrations, the pictures, and how it just it brings the story to life. So I've always been inspired by stories, and I love stories that rhyme and stories that have a message. My favorite author is Julia Donaldson, and I've kind of mimicked my style after hers, but with a Nigerian touch. So yeah, I think because I've read so many children's books to children, I kind of got that experience and saw the books that stood out to children, the style that stood out to children, the books that children repeat, they're telling the story with you, and so I knew that I was going to start my own. After reading thousands of books to children for over 15 years, you catch the bug and feel like, actually, I know I have a story. I know I have a story that will resonate with children, and so I wanted to write my own story.
And the children know you as Miss Mems, am I correct?
Yes, they know me as Miss Mems, yes.
Oh, beautiful, because I imagine some mistakenly call you Mim because of your name.
Yeah.
Ms. Mims is more appropriate. I'd like you to speak to us about the heart of it. Yes, this is literary, but there's something even deeper, because you hear a lot of people who migrated to other countries talk about the challenges of their children, in fact, sometimes psychological, right? And then they begin to hear this child has ADHD, and you're like, no, it's probably this child just trying to, settle into this new environment, this new context, and things are escalated, start getting prescriptions, and you're like, this never happened to me while I was back in Nigeria. So you're touching a very important issue, and I wonder if for you, it also goes beyond literary work. Are you trying to also uncover some of these issues and find ways to help children psychologically deal with different environment, different contexts? Is that something you're also exploring? Because this is big.
Yes, definitely. That's part of what my business does. So I started a company in 2020, Head Start. Obviously, with the pandemic and everything, you notice that there was a lot of just worry and concern. And I think that was when I had started to notice, though, the difference and these challenges that young children face in the schools, being told that they need a diagnosis. Some are real, but some not necessarily, And so I started to notice that. But when I started my business and I was hearing from parents directly what their children had experienced in just being, because people didn't understand the culture, and my own personal experience as well. I mean, in my son's, when he moved, he was with me in nursery. But as soon as he went to primary, they started to say, oh, can you check his ears? He's really loud. And I just wanted to tell them, I'm Nigerian. We are loud. Like, he doesn't need to check his ears. It's a cultural thing, but obviously they don't know these things. And so I started hearing similar stories. He can't sit still. He can't do this. I'm like, they don't understand the culture. And if they did understand the culture, if they just spent a day in a Nigerian's house, they would get it, And yeah, so working in education, you can see that unconscious bias, they don't know. They don't understand the culture. They don't really do the learning or the research to understand. And so you get a lot of misdiagnosis, to be completely honest. And a lot of labeling behavior, but it's just that this is a cultural thing, It's quite frustrating, to be honest, because there's not enough of us. There's not enough teachers that look like me, where I live in Oxford. Like, I've been in the first school I worked in, there was only 3 Black teachers in the whole school. The second school, I was the only Black teacher. Currently, I'm the only Black teacher. It's just normal, for me here.
Just a moment. So someone would expect that with a number of Nigerians in the UK, I know we have more Indians and maybe Pakistani, like I talk of Africans, Nigerians. Some of these things should have been sorted. Is it institutionally just deliberately, I'm looking for the right word now, being evasive to what the reality is, or just generally they are ignorant of how we operate? As you say, we're quite loud.
I think that they care, to be quite frank. I mean, you've come to their country, so it's not really, it's just now that, diversity and everything is being spoken about, that people, and they see Black as Black. So, for instance, someone would ask me, oh, do you know, they'll be talking about something quite, for instance, skiing. I'm Nigerian. I don't like cold. Skiing would not be my first choice of holiday, but you have someone having a conversation and they're saying, oh, would you be interested in a ski trip? And I'm like, you know nothing about me. Like, you know nothing about me. You know nothing about my culture. And this is what we get. They just assume that we are all the same. We all think the same. Okay, maybe you just eat something different. But, there's not that interest. And why would there be? They just don't have the interest, and so that's part of the reason why.
I'm wondering to myself, you say we should go skiing. I say let's eat okra soup. So let's start from and just check out the different Kayode.
Absolutely. Come on, I love the way you're turning the lemons into lemonade and making it pleasurable for others. Thank you so much. I'm tempted to ask you to read a page from Kayode's new. Not because I'm Kayode, not just because I love your work, and I want people to just hear that I'm open to a page in the book. So do you want to read for us, or should I read it?
Sure, of course.
I'd love for you to read just a page for us, because I know you read for children. So we're going into our children elements now. I want to hear
any of the pages.
Miss Mems read for us.
Okay, all right, I'll read this one because I think this is one of my favorite. It says, at first it was hard for Kay to adjust. So Kayode is K for short.
Of course.
At first it was hard for Kay to adjust. New language, new teachers. He made such a fuss. They could not understand him and neither he them. So he stayed on his own and didn't make any friends.
Oh,
beautiful. If I was a child, I'd like to listen to you. Trust me. If I was a child, I would listen to you all day. I'm sure many people, like, you're sedative for them to just go to sleep, like, literally. Beautiful. We'd like to have you back as you continue to do this great work. And please continue to write. And we'll do our very best to support. Thank you so much for the work you do. Please, when they say you should go skiing, tell them, let them come to Lagos. Let's show them how to drive in traffic. Let's just show them a bit of who we are. You know, our elements could also be global, not theirs forcing it on us. But once, thank you so much. Mem Boham, known as Ms. Mems, children's book author, joining us from Oxford in the United Kingdom. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your work.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Absolutely.